Hello and welcome to the G3 Pulse podcast. I'm here today speaking to Jon Jayal from Quixant. And John, it's been 3 months since we had our last chat. And what's been happening in the meantime? Are you all good? Are you at home today?
Lewis, great to see you. Yeah, I'm at home today. We have been back in offices, so we're back quite a lot of the time now around the business. But yeah, I'm doing very well, thanks. How are you?
Yes, good. I mean, one of the things we signed off the last podcast with was we'll see each other at the next set of shows. We've been foiled in that kind of
Once
goal,
again,
and
once again.
I was wondering, in terms of obviously G2E is just around the corner. What's Quicksand's presence there, and what can visitors to the show? What are you going to be greeting with them when they actually get to the booth?
So I think we're trying to take the same approach with trade shows as we have for the rest of the business, really, which is we've got to keep the business rolling as usual. And G2E is a very, very important show for the industry, as you know. And
Yeah.
I'm gutted not to be going. We can't get there from the UK, and many of my colleagues from around the company outside of the UK won't be able to get there. But I think one of the things that we're really fortunate about is we've got a fully resourced US team and actually representation from all different parts of the business departments in the US team. So we've got our CTO based in the US, Abhinay Bagabatula, and a fully resourced technology team, so technology experts in all of the subject matters that hopefully customers will want to talk to us about,
Okay.
and a sales and operations team there. So whilst it's a really disappointing thing personally for me that I can't get to G2E, and it's I think the first G2E I've missed aside from last year in many years.
Yeah.
We've got people in the US that can go to the show, and so coming to the stand, there will be a good representation of Quixent. There'll be people that can answer hopefully any question that customers have. And then alongside from that, we'll have a full complement of our new products alongside people that can talk about them. So
Okay.
it is going to be G2E business as usual, but just with a few less of the faces around the stand that hopefully we could have got there.
Yeah, it's a shame in terms of representation. But what are your feelings about actual expectations and hopes from the show? What do you think we'll actually see from G2E?
I think most people for these at these trade shows, it's all about networking and it's getting to know each other again. And we have had a lot of Teams calls. We've managed to do business on Teams for over 12 months now.
Yeah.
But there's something really missed in not contacting people face to face. So I think a lot of this G2E is about reconnecting. And yes, it's really important to put our latest products out on the show, but I think just reconnecting with the industry, so seeing what customers are looking to achieve, what the latest game titles that are coming out are doing. All of that stuff is very important for us to be able to gauge alongside just talking to people that we haven't seen face to face for many months.
Right. And are you able to actually present products fully at the show as well? Have you got a kind of full representation of products there too?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. So, yeah, we've been working really hard to get everything out to the show. So, our product development process has continued all through COVID. We haven't held back at all on it. Sadly, we've not been able to bring as many of those products to face to face with customers as we'd like to have done, but
Okay.
certainly they'll be at the show, ready for people to see.
And looking at the kind of buying cycle and how maybe COVID has affected that, this lack of scheduled events and, as you mentioned, kind of face to face, how much has that altered the way that OEMs are actually purchasing products? Has the timing changed, the intensity shifted, and has purchasing itself changed? In some way due to a kind of accommodating for the pandemic.
Yeah, so I think the first thing I think is fair to say, and we were certainly very sensitive to this last year, is that last year was a year where customers were, in survival stages. So they
Yeah.
were trying to get through a year where, the casinos were closed in the US for a quarter. Around Europe, they've been closed, on and off a lot longer than that.
Yeah.
And so, nobody was thinking about new products, certainly from our point of view as a hardware vendor. And so we were, continuing to develop. We've got to have new products available, but we're certainly not pushing hard on those into the market because it wasn't appropriate to be doing so when people were worried about, just simply trying to keep their businesses afloat.
Okay.
But so I think, first thing is that, we have seen a resumption of buying cycles and people starting to get back into thinking about their next generation of product and their technology roadmaps. And then the second thing, of course, is that this year, while they've been trying to do that, that's been challenged by the fact you can't get hold of parts. And
Yeah.
so, we've had a new set of challenges this year that have hit us. And so some of the things that are now are almost the most important is us having product that's available on the shelf, and having a good supply chain in place, really sort of alongside what product features they might offer. It's, can you get hold of them in the first place? So we've
Okay.
worked very, very hard this year. We've allocated a lot of money, millions of dollars, towards stock holdings that are bought ahead of time, and that's all trying to mitigate the damage that the shortages are causing to our customers' manufacturing.
Okay. I mean, we discussed the chip shortages on the previous podcast in June, and if anything, it seems as though the problems are getting worse. Is there kind of any light at the end of this particular tech tunnel?
I'd love to say there was, but I don't think there is anything soon. I
Really?
think we're talking about well into 2022,
Okay.
probably towards the end of the year, before we're going to see any kind of easing of the current problems. So our business planning approach is very much that we need to have purchases that are going well out into 2022. We've committed to them already, and we're continuing to extend that. And the board has approved a strategic purchasing program, which allows us to buy stock well ahead of time. So
Right.
what we're sort of working at the moment on is trying to handle the nearer term demand, which of course is continuing to go up as people are buying more product.
Okay.
But we're trying to get behind that with a greater degree of stock resiliency, so that going into next year we don't have the same kind of supply chain challenges, certainly to the same extent as we faced this year.
Okay. I mean, we've got we've got shortages. We have a lack of face-to-face events. We had AMD earlier exiting the business. It's been something of a perfect storm. Do you think the worst is now behind us? And how have you've been talking about how you manage these issues, but where are we on a kind of a timeline of, are we at the trough part? Have we kind of broken the back of it? Are we climbing up out of it still? Where do you think we are, John?
Yeah, in all of those things, I think different places in the trough. So on the
Okay.
supply chain side, I think we're very much still in the bottom of the trough. I don't think we're coming out of that yet.
Okay.
I think in the demand and sort of resumption of shows, and I guess with us sitting in the UK here and hearing all of the news flow, there's a big question over what happens in the next month or two, and whether we
Yeah.
are going to end up with further restrictions again. Who knows is the answer to that. So I
Yeah.
think in terms of looking forward to things like ice and whether ice will happen or not, there's going to be a big part of how the winter pans out in the UK and around Europe. But I think shows wise, at the moment, I feel that we're on a trajectory of improvement. So we're starting to see trade shows happening again. I think they will start to pick up again, provided there isn't any further sort of government restrictions that are imposed. On the demand side, it's certainly
Mm.
coming back strongly,
Okay.
and we've seen a very, very strong intake of orders in the business, and lots of interest in some of the new products we've got as well. So certainly on the demand side, it's really picked up, and I guess that's sort of tempered by the availability of components and stock, and
Yeah.
and what we can get out. So we're working really hard to make sure that the customers that we've been working with for many years, and those that we've brought on more recently, that they have stock and they can get their products supplied. And that's at the expense of potentially new business wins that we might be able to get. We can't be pushing on new business when we haven't got enough to satisfy the people that we've already got committed to. So
Yeah.
so we're working as hard as we can on it. As I said, we've got a big allocation of stock that we've bought, and we will continue to do that into next year. But I think if you take all of them in the mix and you said, "Are we on the recovery?" I'd have said yes. I think in aggregate, I think we've all got used to COVID. I think we've figured out how to handle it. We
Okay.
know that the players still want retail-based gambling offerings, so that's been a big sort of tick in the box that we didn't have, perhaps at the sort of the middle of last year. So I think we are on the recovery. It's going to be a bumpy ride.
Okay, and again, from that point, but also from the previous podcast, you mentioned about markets rebounding, especially the US. At the time, you mentioned about it seeing kind of surprise, a lot of growth from that side. Are there any other markets that are kind of also rebounding? Is it mostly US focused? And what's kind of surprised you about the way the industry's been adapting to COVID, and the way that they're actually being resilient from that side?
Yeah, so the US is certainly rebounding strongly, but I've also
Okay.
been surprised with some of the European customers and their demands. And I think I've often thought along this journey, what's going on? Why are people buying machines when casinos are closed? And I think, if I just take a small straw poll of places around the UK, venues around the UK that you're going to bars or pubs. I think that a lot of venues have had changes in management, but there is still a strong appetite from players to go back to physical gambling. And it's no surprise why people are sick of sitting at home. They're sick of looking at teams, looking at
Yeah.
computer screens. And so, I think venues have said, well, we've got a choice here. We can either just sit tight with what we've had and potentially lose the punters to a different venue because they've upgraded, or we go all in and we upgrade, and maybe it's a new management team that's done the upgrades.
Okay.
And so I think that actually there's been a renaissance of demand across markets, even those that haven't been perhaps so buoyant and open as the US, with replacing machines and putting new titles in. So I think the industry at the moment in terms of demand is actually much better than I would have expected it to be right now, particularly in Europe when you look at the sort of still the level of restrictions and travel patterns that people have got. So so I think the industry has been incredibly resilient actually through this, and I think a lot of the participants in it have been very mature about how they've handled the situations.
Okay.
They've realised that we're all in it together,
Yeah.
and that we can't sort of normal business practices, normal sort of debt collections, etc., can't resume when people aren't getting any money in from players. And
Okay.
so I think everybody's been quite mature about it, and that's been to the benefit of the overall industry actually, because it's still here, it's still strong. There's still going to be innovation in it, and that's what's going to fuel that next generation of games which entice the players and win that marginal dollar from them over something else.
You launched a range of products at the beginning of the year. I'm just wondering. I mean, it was tricky to obviously do that and to keep that kind of, as you said, the kind of flow of the products going. I'm just wondering what's kind of caught the imagination of the OEMs, and what's driving the engagement. Because obviously, um, did you put the right products out there into the marketplace for the COVID response, or were these things that were in developed for a long time and were coming in and they were about to go into fruition? Has that kind of changed your view of what those products are and how they fit? And I suppose the demand for the high end or the low end, the mid ranges that you do, how's that kind of changed the product basis, John?
So I think that the product splits that we see demand for haven't changed dramatically. The new IQ range that we launched last year, that's been really popular,
Okay.
and we've seen strong uptake from that point of view, particularly in sort of Latin American and European markets. That's been a really popular product for us, so we're really pleased with how that's performing so far. We're excited to get that in front of people physically at G2E, because that's not been something that's been so widely accessible for people to see on a stand or see at a trade show. So,
Okay.
so that we're really excited about. And we've got our new high-end product that's based on the Intel Tiger Lake architecture, and we've seen a lot of demand from that. It's compatible with a lot of our existing product lines as well, which is an easy upgrade path for people, and it's got some great performance on the graphics side as well. So driving the latest resolution of the latest games with high resolution graphics, that new Intel architecture is really good for. So we've seen some interest in that very early on
Okay.
in its life. So yeah, so I think the products that we've launched, I wouldn't have said we've overhauled our roadmap because of COVID. I think it's fair to say that some of the launches have been less fanfare than we'd have anticipated because of COVID. But we're a business that's been in this for 16 years. We're hopefully going to be here doing it 16 years later, and so our roadmap doesn't change because of 1 year.
Yeah.
But we've just sort of had to adapt it to the needs of the market at that given point in time. And so that is all about trying to underpin supply chain, make sure that the products are available, and B, make sure that we're getting information about those products out, if not in a fanfare way at a trade show, but still to the customers with different forms of marketing.
Okay, and what's been the kind of the key point? I'd say the most exciting point about the products that you've released this year. But what's the kind of the key message that you want to put across about them, and why they're so important that customers come and engage at the booth at G2E?
So I think the year has put greater emphasis on trying to streamline development cost, because clearly in a year where last year very few there was very low revenues in the across the gaming
Yeah.
sector, and this year in certain markets, Macau for example, it still is depressed. There's less money flowing into the casinos' hands and therefore to our customers' hands. So, a lot of it is about enabling them through areas in which we can help them within our technology stack, to ride this new world that we're in post pandemic, and do it in a more efficient way where content can be heavily invested in and focus on that content area, and less on some of the other stuff that we can offer them as part of our product offering. So, I think it's more of the same of what we've done in the past. We've always been about enabling content to be the king in our
Okay.
customers, content to be the thing which they spend all of their R&D on. And we can help in lots of other areas. And that's a key message of what we're launching today. And the products that we've launched now have got more features in them to enable that drive towards content focus with our customers.
Obviously, someone who talks technology all the time, and you're discussing this with people at the kind of bleeding edge of creating that technology. Do you think that it'll be technology that will be the driver that brings the retail gaming sector kind of roaring back, or how realistic expectation that tech can be our savior at this point?
I believe that entirely, that tech is our savior in this. I think that if you look at the companies in the consumer markets that are successful, in sort of recoveries from things like the financial crisis, it's always about having something which is technically a better product than the others. So you look at what Apple did in their launch of the iPhone, and it's an incredible product. It just beat everything else in the market. So for me, when you're looking at the casinos and what players are going to want to play, they want to play games which are innovative and are bringing new bonus rounds, new features to the players. And so technology underpins that, and it's all about how you interact with the machine. You want to have vibrant graphics, you want to have a multimedia rich experience, and you want to have bonus features and content which makes them immersive and enjoyable. And so, from my point of view, I think that technology is exactly what makes players, not only come back but thrive
Right.
in a post pandemic world.
Um, I mean, there's this kind of yin yang thing going on at the moment with for every positive, there's the kind of no COVID negative, and the gaming market had made a serious amount of adjustments this year, but it's proven resilient. But it is reshaping itself. What do you see the big positives coming from the changes you've witnessed, and I mean, why do you remain optimistic as well at this point when there's been so many kind of hammer blows that have come against the industry at this point?
Well, I think it is. You said the resilience that it's proven. I think that speaks volumes about the nature of the industry, and I think the collaboration across the partners within the industry, I think, is also really exciting as well to have seen, because that collaboration is what unlocks success in the future. Because you earn a greater degree of trust
Okay.
when you go through these types of situations. So the customers hopefully trust us that we do the right thing by them, but also that the way that the sort of the greater degree of integration between online and land based has happened. I think that's only a positive thing. We know that the internet's here to stay. We know that online gaming is here to stay.
Yeah.
And you've seen that greater degree of tighter integration between land based and online. And I think that's a really good thing for getting perhaps the younger players coming out into retail offerings. And the fact that tighter integrations happen, but you've still seen, certainly in the US market, strong
Yeah.
land-based revenues is an indication to me that the industry, certainly hasn't gone into a decline because of it. In fact, it's thriving. And if that online sort of gateway into land-based gaming works, you've created sort of the thing that people have been talking about forever, which is how do you entice younger players to the industry?
Yeah.
And so I think it is a positive thing. And I think although the last 2 years have been very uncomfortable for all of us involved in the industry, and it's been, we've had to look into the abyss on many occasions. I think the long term will be that it shows the industry's resilient and innovative, and in thinking about new ways in which to address a different audience of player.
Well, the sign off of the podcast last time was I'll see you at the next show. But I'm at this point, I'm going to say that I hope in another couple of months' time, John, I'll be able to have a catch up with you, really to kind of chat about, obviously, hopefully things will have changed a bit more for the better. I'll ask you a series of things about the troughs and the lows again, and hopefully, as we move towards 2022, as we move towards the ice show, that things will actually start to pick up. But again, I don't think I'll be catching you at any live events between now and then. So I do look forward to speaking to some of the Quixant team after G2E and catching up on how they've actually felt the show's gone, what the results were. Hopefully, all very positive as well. But again, thank you for taking part, and I look forward to speaking to you very soon.
Yeah, thanks, Lewis. And yeah, we live in hope. I hope we can see you at ICE next year.
Yeah, me too. Okay, I'll speak to you soon, John. Bye.
Thanks, Lewis. Bye bye.